Hello, welcome to the channel. Have you ever wondered why Earth doesn't have these rings? Are you sure you know the true answer? What would happen if it did? Would it really be worth having this kind of decoration around us? Don't you care? Well, if you care, you can stay. First, why does Saturn have rings? For a long time, actually since Galileo first observed them in 1610, they have been a mystery. Galileo didn't know they were rings at first, we found that out later. Over time, attempts have been made to explain how they formed. It's just very difficult to know exactly what happened to something in the universe so long ago. So what do scientists do to theorize about possible answers? Do they sit at their computers and analyze photos and videos and say, that's it? No. Although analyzing images can be part of the research process, of course, it involves detailed research, deep analysis, and the formulation of hypotheses to be corroborated, reaching a conclusion, and then publishing the entire theory. The best attempt to explain the origin of Saturn's rings was made less than a decade ago by Robin Canup when she published her theory in the journal Nature. This theory matches the observations better than any other. Canup created detailed computer simulations that suggest a violent origin for Saturn's rings. According to this theory, when the planet merged during the birth of the solar system, over 4.5 billion years ago, the surrounding gas disk included several moons the size of Titan, but gravitational interactions with the gas caused the moon's orbits to shrink, and one by one, the satellites spiraled to their deaths, plunging into the planet. Before each moon collided, the immense tidal forces produced by Saturn's gravity stretched and squeezed them, tearing off much of their ice. The following moons gravitationally captured this ice, but eventually, they also stretched and squeezed until they shed their ice and plunged into Saturn. Today's ring system is the remains, let's say fossils, of the last moon that fell, victim to Saturn's immense gravity. But as we have seen in other videos, Saturn is not the only planet in the solar system with rings. Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune also have them, only they are too small to be seen from here. It was the Voyager mission that made us aware that other planets also have rings. These rings were likely formed from debris resulting from collisions on their respective moons, or they are the product of a large moon that was shattered when it crossed the Roche limit. What is the Roche limit? A moon is held together by its own gravity in relation to its planet, but it will break apart due to tidal forces. If a moon gets too close to a planet, it will be destroyed by the planet's gravity, and a large part of it will become a ring. The closest distance a moon can approach a planet is known as the Roche limit, and it depends on the mass and density of the planet and the moon. Large planets like the gas giants also have a large Roche limit, and they have accumulated several moons throughout their history that have been torn apart by this limit, forming rings sometimes. Earth also has a Roche limit. Does this mean that we could also have rings like Saturn? Not necessarily. The problem with ice rings, because those are the rings that Saturn has, otherwise they wouldn't shine so brightly, reflecting the sunlight, and we wouldn't be able to see them as beautiful as we do. That's what happens with those rings. But Earth is very close to the sun. It orbits too closely for these rings to form. There is a specific point in the solar system known as the frost line. This is the point in the solar system where ice deposits could have survived for long periods of time. Closer than that, and the sun's radiation sublimates the ice. This point is located about 5 astronomical units from the sun in the asteroid belt. Mars is much closer, so it's very dry, while Jupiter is beyond the freezing line, and its moons have a lot of ice. Earth is only 1 astronomical unit from the sun. That's the definition of 1 astronomical unit, of course, which means it is within the frost line. So, if there were an ice ring system around Earth, the solar wind would have long since dissipated it. But what about other types of rings? Those created by asteroids or moons that break apart. Those that are made of rock and dust. Billions of years ago, we probably had a ring when a planet the size of Mars collided with Earth and threw up a huge ring of debris. This debris came together to form the moon we know today, but in those times the climate was quite warm. Active volcanoes everywhere, all the time. There was no life, of course. That, of course, is the apocalyptic landscape of billions of years ago. But now that we have everything calm in our system, and in this area of the universe, could Earth have rings soon? Let's see. First, the moon is moving away from Earth. Many people already know that. It's not a movement where you say, wow, it's moving away so fast. It's just moving at a rate of 3.78 centimeters per year, due to tidal forces. How does this work? The moon exerts a tidal force on Earth, causing a sort of bulge. But because Earth rotates, that bulge is not directly between Earth and the moon. It's a bit over here. That bulge has a gravitational pull on the moon, which makes it move a bit faster. And making the moon move a bit faster causes it to slowly rise to a higher orbit. But this won't always be the case. Now let's go to the future, billions of years in the future. At that time, there might be something that completely changes the whole scenario. When the sun begins becomes a red giant, it will consume Mercury and Venus. And we also saw the hypothetical case where the solar expansion consumes Earth. But scientists are not entirely sure what will actually happen to Earth. Some think it will be fine, the sun will shed its outer layers, but in reality, they won't envelop Earth. Others believe that when the sun reaches its maximum growth point, we will be orbiting within its outer atmosphere. We would all be charred, but the Earth would remain intact. In this case, our orbiting moon would experience resistance as it revolves around the Earth, slowing down its orbital speed and causing it to sink inward. Once it reaches the Roche limit, at about 9,500 kilometers, the gravity of our planet will tear the moon apart into a ring. The pieces in the ring will also experience resistance in the solar atmosphere and continue to spiral inward until they collide with the planet. Today, of course, not even in the near future is it possible for the moon to reach the Roche limit of Earth. But if it were to happen at this moment, it would be terrible for us. The mere fact that such a large object is so close to Earth would mean the apocalypse. As the gigantic ring-shaped pieces of material enter Earth's atmosphere, the temperature would increase, baking and boiling any life that cannot hide underground. Beautiful, isn't it? Okay, let's suppose that inexplicably Earth has rings as stunning as Saturn's and no apocalypse has occurred. We can all see them. Would it be good, beneficial for humanity? It depends on who you are. If you're someone who enjoys spending the whole day contemplating nature, then yes, you would be very happy. But if you're an astronomer, you might not have such a good time. As you can see in these simulated images, the rings occupy a large portion of the sky for most observers. The further north or south you go, the more dramatically the rings will spoil your view. Only if you were at the equator would you have a thin line, which is acceptable but not enough. Furthermore, the rings themselves would reflect too much sunlight and completely ruin the dark skies. That's also bad for astronomy. A bright moon is often an obstacle to observations, and the rings would be much worse. Finally, the rings would interfere with our ability to launch spacecraft and maintain satellites in orbit. Depending on how far they extend, we wouldn't be able to have any satellites in that region or cross the ring plane. Probably, humanity would develop other technologies to work around them, but they certainly wouldn't be like the technology we have now. Due to its proximity to the sun, it is most likely that Earth has never had rings like Saturn's, as bright and beautiful as they are. It may have had rock and dust rings for periods, but they were not a great spectacle to observe. Perhaps that's why there were no conscious beings to witness it. But don't be sad. Seeing rings around our planet would mean that we have lost our moon and are about to be bombarded by the cosmos. For us, that cannot be a beautiful dream, but rather the worst nightmare. Let's be happy with this magnificent planet we have, the most vibrant one we know. And that's the end of the video. If you liked it, subscribe.